Welcome back to Healing Eve. This episode, we are going back and regrouping around our discussion on declining fertility. And we have a special focus on the primary driver of global declining fertility. Guess what? It's not an accident. Stay tuned. Welcome. And as always, you are loved, you are unique, and you are enough. Today, we shall be continuing our discussion on declining fertility rates, sperm and egg, and we had introduced our toxin clock, and we shall be looking at the primary driver of global reductions in fertility rates. And while it should be number one on our toxin clock is number 6, but don't worry about it. We are going to start with contraception. Contraception, that class of drugs which antagonize different parts of the reproductive cycle and so lead to reduced ability to have pregnancies. Let's go down memory lane. Why did human beings buy into contraception? Well, contraception is actually a very age-old practice. Modern contraception, however, began in the 1960s. And what was the sales pitch? We needed control over our bodies. We needed to be able to decide when and how to have children for the well-being and quality of life for human beings to improve. Seemed to be reasonable expectations that without the fear of pregnancy, sex would be more fulfilling. Men and women would have happier relationships because there was not the sword of Damocles of pregnancy and having to marry somebody that you weren't ready to. It would lead to fewer unwed pregnancies, fewer abortions could be foreseen, and this nasty situation of overpopulation would also be controlled. Now, there were those who sounded warnings that widespread contraception was going to have unintended results, but they were ignored. And now, the results are in. Total fertility rate globally has reduced. Even in your life experiences, your parents, how many uncles and aunts do you have? How many children did your grandparents have? On average, 6, 8. Your parents, how many did they have? 4, 5, 6. Young mothers and fathers, how many are you planning to have? 2. If you're very generous, 3. So, when you're a grandparent, how many grandchildren will you have? Japan actually has a clock that is ticking for when they cease to be Japanese because there's widespread contraception. There was full acceptance of the contraceptive message in Japan and in other areas of the world. So, what did we see in those places where contraception was adopted wholeheartedly? We had worsening in male-female relationships. Instead of happiness, men and women became more depressed and frustrated. Single parenthood became an epidemic. Abortions went through the roof. And you had increase in divorce, poverty, and all manner of social chaos. Why did this happen? Sexual intercourse is not only a physical act. the human person is not just his or her genitals. The giving of self that is an intrinsic part of the sexual act. Once it is separated from the bonding and the procreation that makes it an integral, unitary act, it becomes almost impossible for negative effects not to be the result. So studies into human reproduction have revealed certain interesting things. First of all, women who have fertile cycles attract men, and those men have increased testosterone. Women who are not contracepting are themselves attracted to higher functioning men. And during ovulation, they choose more masculine and more assertive men. The number of sexual partners that one has before marriage affects the stability of eventual marriage. Why is this? When sexual intercourse takes place, oxytocin, which is a hormone, is released. That hormone is the key driver for the bonding that takes place between the two people who had intercourse. Now, if it was only a fling, something that had no commitment behind it, of course, that bond has taken place, but it is instantly broken because there was no intent to bond with that person. And that is how serial monogamy, what we call modern day dating, leads to bonds being developed and broken. Bonds being developed and broken. And eventually, the capacity of the body to form that bond becomes weak. It's like Velcro, what we use to hold down canvas or sneakers. When you hold it down, it's very firm. By the 200th time, it's not as strong as it was when you first bought it. It's the same thing. Sexual intercourse was supposed to bond one man, one woman, and last through marriage to help to keep that unit, that couple, with the children that will be the result of that loving union, to keep them together. Now, when individuals go through decades of dating and using sex as recreation, by the time they want to settle down, their capacity emotionally, psychologically, to stay with that one person that they finally have committed to is weaker. So, what do we have to look forward to at the rate that we are going? Remember, the pathways for contraception to reduce population were three. The first, to prevent pregnancy. Now, of course, in NGO parlance, it's prevent unintended pregnancies. The next phrase, family spacing. The third pathway is educational and economic empowerment. What exactly does that mean? It means that as young women are progressing in their educational journey, the end point, the goal post, is continually pushed further and further. One is going through one's education to be economically empowered. But the desire to control, the desire to have more and more is offered, and there is no counterbalance. There is no messaging to say, well, how about starting your family along the way? That is a cultural and traditional message that up and coming young women don't really need to listen to. Oh no, we have new mechanisms by which we can eat our cake and have it. So we have this new trend going on, which we will discuss in depth next time. Freezing your eggs.
What does hormonal contraception actually do inside a woman's body?
So just to give a quick overview of how contraception is a toxin in the body. When the menstrual cycle begins at any particular point in time, we have hormones that are active at the level of the brain, which, when released, go to the ovaries to trigger the production of other hormones. So, at the level of the brain, you have gonadotropin releasing hormone, which causes two hormones to be released, luteinizing hormone and follicular stimulating hormone. Those two hormones now orchestrate the production of estrogen at the beginning of the menstrual cycle, and at ovulation, you now have progesterone being produced. What contraception does is to shut down that cycle of hormonal production, because contraceptives are the end hormones themselves. Contraceptives are either combined estrogen and progesterone or progesterone alone. And what they do is to tell the body, oh, you don't need to make any more hormones. We got you covered. You're all right. And so the body is in a pseudo pregnancy state when it's taking a combined estrogen and progesterone medication. What that does at the level of the brain is to now suppress both the hormones at that level as well as the hormone production at the ovarian level. That's not how any woman's body was designed to function. Now, when you now go a step further and realize that estrogen itself has been classified as a class 1 carcinogenic substance on the same level as tobacco, you know that you are doing yourself a disservice. There are indications for using hormones in gynecology, but to be continuously taking these drugs is to expose your beautiful hormonal endocrine system to risks that no one can actually predict. The longer you are on these medications, then the more unknowns are in your fertility future once you decide that you wish to now have a child. And again, going back to our educational and economic empowerment pathway, did it ever occur to you that the more you climbed your career ladder, the more the whispers would be in your ear about having backup plans for your fertility? I hear it's a trend now that young career ladies in their late 20s and 30s are being advised to freeze their eggs. That's a discussion for the next episode. Stay tuned. And remember, you are loved, you are unique, and you are enough.